British Spy Stories. Season 3. Official Denial. Episode 11. Agent Oxwood pulls his greatcoat closer around his shoulders as he slams out of the rear door of the British Embassy in Budapest. He pulls out a packet of Chopinay cigarettes and lights one. He can't get his usual brand, but these are the next best thing. He wants to give up. Only once did he seriously try, and that was when he was with Gabby. He smokes far more nowadays. He crosses the 4 lanes of the Margate Boulevard and goes into the smaller streets between here and the river. At the next road he crosses over and walks on, taking a number of winding turns until he reaches the path that runs alongside the Danube. He likes it down here because it feels like escape, far away from the closely controlled world that he inhabits every day. His colleagues are nice enough, but you can't trust spies. They've been attracted to a career of lying in the first place, so most of them have trouble ever being honest. He thinks about Gabby again. It surprised him when they had ended up in bed the other night. He thought it was all over, and maybe it is. She had been clear before they'd slept together that it was just a one-off. Just an escape for one night, were the words she used. The man who he's meeting is already there by the bench, as arranged. They don't say anything to each other, but Nick palms a $100 bill and they shake hands. And the man leaves a plastic bag of cocaine, concealed within Nick's fingers. The man turns back and disappears up into the maze of roads behind them, and Nick pockets the drugs and walks on. The light is starting to fade. He walks along the river, then turns up into Salogan Street and pushes the door to a bar near the corner with the main road. It's a long, low-ceilinged place with an enormous bar down one side. It is half full, and he goes to the bathroom first to take the drugs, then comes back out, orders a beer and sits in one of the booths. He has almost finished his drink when a man slips into the seat opposite him. And Nick looks up. "Do I know you?" he says. "No, you don't, Nick." "Who are you?" "An associate of the man you met earlier by the river." "Sorry, mate. I don't know what you're Nicholas Warren." "Agent Oxwood, MI6, says the man, as though reciting from a script. Nick drains his beer glass and watches the face of the stranger. He's about 40, jet black hair, cut well. There's a scar on his chin, and one of his blue eyes is darker than the other. "What do you want?" says Nick, after a pause. "Information." "Anything specific?" The man smiles with his eyes. "A list of all the current MI6 activity in Hungary." "You have the wrong guy, mate." "The difficulty is," says the man, "that I happened to be by the river earlier with my camera. London would be very interested in my photos, don't you think? Sir Bernard is always keen to know what his agents get up to in their spare time." "Like I said, you've got me mistaken for someone else." "You have 48 hours, Nick. Deliver a copy of the plans to me here in exactly 2 days and we'll forget all about it." Nick's face shows no emotion. "And if you think that London might understand the drugs, then they'll struggle to accept you killing that prostitute in your flat." "What are you talking about?" he says. "The one that will be found next week, and you with no alibi." The man's face is deadpan. He slides along the seat, stands up and walks away, back out to the street. The Joint Security Services Committee has already been going on for an hour and a half, and Sir Bernard is starting to get irritable. The chairman, Sir Ralph Coltrane, permanent secretary to the Foreign Office, is an old friend of Sir Bernard's, but isn't a man who is ever in a hurry. Sir Ralph has a broad, open face and salt and pepper hair, cut short, with brown eyes that blink just too often. There are only 4 people around the large beach table in meeting room 12 on the 3rd floor of the building that houses the British Foreign Secretary, as well as most of the senior civil servants who advise the Minister on Britain's interests across the world. Between Sir Ralph and Sir Bernard, Connie Barrett is playing with the edge of a notepad that sits in front of her. The 4th person is Robin McDermott, Ralph's opposite number in the Home Office, which controls MI5. "Item 17, Operation Millport," says Sir Ralph, and he looks over his glasses. "Bernard?" "Not for minuting," he says, turning momentarily to a clerk who is sitting at a desk to one side and writing notes of the conversations. She takes her hands away from the keyboard in front of her and puts them in her lap. "We ran an attempt on Millport, but it was unsuccessful. The target, Redwick, escaped the attack." "Reasons for that, Bernard?" "More close insecurity than was evident from the intelligence received." "What went wrong?" says Robin. "These things happen." Sir Bernard only briefly flicks his eyes up to Robin's face. "We're replanning for the next few days." "We've seen a rise in Russian agents here at home pressurising about Hungarian ops," says Connie. "We're pushing back and adding resources, but the Russians are getting more aggressive with their covert operations." "It needs to work this time, Bernard," says Sir Ralph. "It will. We have our best resources on it." "Are the resources in the field secure, Bernard?" says Sir Ralph. "Not leaky at all?" "Agent Oxwood is our man in Budapest," says Sir Bernard. "He reports no activity of that sort." "They're also seeking information about the Black Sea port attack," says Connie. "We weren't involved." "That's not what they think." "We're aware of what they think," says Sir Bernard. "There's a request from the Minister, Bernard," says Ralph. "The EU have been badgering about joint working in Hungary." "Oxwood is liaising?" "The Minister wants us to bring in Germany a bit more directly," says Ralph. "Can you talk to Christian Becker, the B&D Eastern Europe chief?" "What do they want?" says Sir Bernard. "To deploy some bodies. They feel German interests are not being represented." "I'll look into it, Ralph." "Item 18, Domestic Terror Report," says Sir Ralph. "Connie?" An hour later the meeting ends and Sir Bernard goes down in the lift to the ground floor and out to his Jaguar. His driver Percy bounces out of the car as he sees his boss emerging from the swing doors. "Drive somewhere, Percy. Anywhere, please," says Sir Bernard. Percy likes these moments in his job, when the governor wants to just get away from it all and think. They cut across Lambeth Bridge, then turn south, past Vauxhall Cross, and out to Wandsworth, where Percy turns onto the A3 and drives on. At Stag Lodge, they turn off west, then turn back on themselves and into Richmond Park. Percy guides the car up to the parking at Isabella Plantation and stops. Sir Bernard pulls the door handle and steps out into the autumn air. He buttons up his coat and pushes his scarf inside to maintain warmth against the gusts of cold wind. Up here, above London, the air is clear, and a pale blue sky stretches out across the landscape to the south. After 5 minutes, Sir Bernard reaches into his jacket pocket, and his fingers grasp his phone. He dials a number from the store and puts the device to his ear. "Hello, Sir Bernard." It's Gabby's voice. "Agent Blackhawk, I wanted to talk to you about our ops." "Have you seen my last report on the system, sir?" "Yes, read and destroyed, as per procedure for official denial." "Did you have some questions?" she says. "My questions are not about Redwick, Gabrielle. You didn't mention anything about Overbeck. Have you progressed that?" "We have confirmed he's in Budapest, sir. We know he has a girlfriend who came with him from Kiev, but we haven't made direct contact yet." "Can I ask a question, sir?" Of course, he says.
What's our objective with Overbeck? Make sure he's okay or get him out of Hungary?
It depends if he's a risk, says Sir Bernard. Are the Russians likely to get to him? He has some knowledge of British operations, and Ukrainian ones.
We can't tell until we talk to him, sir.
Her gaze changes, from looking out of the window to the two faces sat opposite her in the meeting room. Laravel and Hans are giving nothing away in their expressions. Can I ask you something too, Gabrielle? Agent Oxwood. I have had some reports come through about his behaviour. He seems to be a bit erratic, a bit inconsistent. You've met him, haven't you? What's your assessment?
He is prone to be erratic, sir. If he doesn't get what he wants.
Gabby doesn't know Sir Bernard is aware of her relationship with Oxwood in the past. I'd like you to give him any support you can, Gabrielle. As two field officers, chums together, someone to talk to. Gabby is suddenly sure that Sir Bernard does know about her sleeping with Oxwood the other night. What's obvious, too, is that the Oxwood conversation is the reason he called. All the other information he could have found out from the covert reports on Oberon. They end the call and Gabby turns back to Laravel and Hans, who have been sitting patiently in the room. Any news? Says Hans. Are London concerned about something?
I can't tell. It's not about Millport, though. Something else. It felt like he was warning us about something. Did he say anything about Overbeck? Says Laravel. No. You heard what I asked him, and he was non-committal. Anyway, tell me about last night, says Gabby.
I mentioned to you at breakfast that Nadia wants Taras killed, begins Hans. She asked me because she thinks I'm an ex-soldier prone to a bit of freelance work. I think it sounds suspicious. Maybe a trap.
What do you mean?
It seems like such a massive jump for Nadia to make. From the bored wife of a rich guy to suddenly putting out a contract on him.
She said she was scared, says Laravel. He's become more violent since his leg got shot up.
Laravel's phone buzzes on the table, and she checks the screen.
Elena says that Nadia is inviting us to go to the Cavals for dinner at the weekend.
She looks at Hans.
And Victor will be there. That gives you the chance to talk to Overbeck, says Gabby. But my question is, should we spend any time on Taras Caval? Overbeck and Redwick are our missions, not Caval. I do think those men are connected too. Taras and Victor were out together last night, says Laravel.
We know from Oberon that Caval is involved in maybe half of all the black market activity in Budapest, says Hans. The Russian mafia source the goods and he sells them on. But there's no evidence that he knows Redwick. Caval is important locally, but Redwick is 2 or 3 layers up in the organisation. Caval probably doesn't even know what he looks like, or where he's based.
Does Caval only deal in guns, Hans?
No, drugs too, but also a load of other things. Jeans, flour, pesticides, anything that can be sold somewhere. He has good contacts in the EU too, and sells about 1/3 there.
Gabby pauses and takes a breath out. Tell you what then, here's my view. Our objective is the same. Talk to Overbeck and find out what he wants. Then potentially provide a route for him out of Hungary. Alongside that, if we can collect intel on Taras Caval's operations, then great, but we'll pass it on to London and Oxwood.
Okay.
Okay. I'd also like you to plant some bugs on Saturday in the flat, says Gabby, so we can collect more intel on Taras. Right, says Laravel. Just so you know too, Gordon, she says, smiling at Hans. The text from Elena says to dress up, dinner jackets and cocktail dresses.
Oh, great, he says, and the women laugh. The autumn sun hangs in the sky over St. John's Wood and streams in through the windows of the conservatory of 17A Carlisle Place, creating deep shadows on the opposite wall. Mrs. Jenkins, the daily woman, who comes in to cook and clean for Fiona Allardyce, knocks gently on the glass door that leads to the hallway.
Your ladyship?
Fiona looks up from her copy of the Racing Times on her lap.
Brenda, what's the matter?
Says the old woman.
You look like you've seen a ghost.
She smiles at her, but Brenda's face stays wide-eyed and serious.
You've got a visitor, Mum. Who is it? I'm not expecting anyone.
Brenda turns back towards the corridor.
Sir, do you want to come through?
Brenda stands back against the wall in the corridor, and a man appears in the doorway. Lady Allardyce locks her eyes onto his face, and he on hers. Brenda disappears back the way she came. The man walks into the main space of the conservatory. Still they say nothing to each other. He is tall and tanned, with hair that had been brown but is now nearly all grey. His eyes are still as blue as the day she first met him. After a minute, he speaks first. Did you miss me, Fee? Lady Allardyce's brain is full of thoughts, ideas and facts and stories that she was told 10 years ago. At last she manages to say a word.
David?
Her husband walks over to the seat next to her and sits down. Yes. His face breaks into an enormous smile. Yes. It's me, my darling.